welcome back to my channel. I'm here with this week's astrology oracle reading for you. Today is November 21st, 2022, and as always, I am using an event chart created for Dayton, Ohio at 11:11 a.m. This is giving us a very late Scorpio sun at 29 degrees, additionally a 29-degree Libra moon, and a 17-degree Capricorn rising. Now, if you are curious to learn more about degrees and degree theory, which is a little bit more of an esoteric take on what these exact timing measurements can mean, then I have a fantastic blog post which I will link in the show notes below for you to read about. But me personally, if you've ever seen my birth chart, I have Scorpio rising at 29 degrees. So seeing this 29-degree Scorpio sun is forming an exact conjunction to my rising sign is a divine divine aspect in transit to be witnessing right now. Also love seeing the 29-degree Libra moon. And really what the 29th degree is signifying, it's an anaretic degree, and it is the end of a cycle. It is the end of a zodiac season for whatever planet we are talking about. And of course, as we know, the sun and moon are not planets in typical astronomy, but in astrology, we do refer to these celestial bodies as planets. So we have the two of the major luminaries, both of the major luminaries, the sun and moon at 29 degrees, right on the precipice of changing into a new sign. So for the moon, that will be Scorpio, and for the sun, that will be Sagittarius, meaning that we are about to enter into the Sagittarius solar season. As I mentioned last week, Venus and Mercury have already ingressed into Sagittarius. So if you, like me, as a Scorpio rising, have been feeling very exhausted, very tired, and having a very activated dream realm, then this is good news, because Sagittarius is a lot more, I guess, lighthearted than Scorpio at the very least. It's a lot more expansive. It's a lot more expressive, creative, interested in learning, exploring, traveling. So yeah, it feels, at least I really certainly feel, that the break away from that Scorpio stellium that we've had for almost a month is kind of a breath of fresh air, right? Like this Sagittarius energy, it's a little bit more social. It's definitely, again, more into like traveling and exploring. And I mean, for those in the US who do have a holiday to celebrate this week, this is a very big travel week. And of course, it falls right in the midst of the ingress into Sagittarius season. Now, within this chart, we are currently seeing an exact, almost exact, I should say, trine between the moon and Mars in Gemini. Of course, Mars in Gemini is still doing its retrograde. It is currently at 22 degrees, which is why that is not an exact trine, because Mars would have to be at 29 degrees for it to be exact. But nonetheless, still very expansive and powerful. And the moon, of course, being in an air sign, is creating a harmonious trine to Mars, which is also in an air sign, which is Gemini. This is also creating a trine over to Saturn in Aquarius. Yes, Saturn is still sitting in Aquarius. We are still in that ride. And, you know, we are at 19 degrees of that Saturn Aquarius. So we still have 10 more degrees to get through before we are finished with this experience. And next year we will see Saturn moving into Pisces. But those are not the only trines that are existing in this chart. It's not just the air signs that are really shining in this chart. The moon in the sun in Scorpio, very late again, is creating an almost exact trine, 1 degree off from Jupiter retrograde in Pisces, and Neptune also retrograde in Pisces at 22 degrees. So there is a lot of really beautiful energy flowing between these planets and water signs and these planets and air signs. Now, of course, that's not to say that there aren't still tension existing between that Mars retrograde and the Neptune and Jupiter retrogrades. There's still a little bit of tension happening between the Sun in Scorpio and Saturn in Aquarius, both fixed signs. Gemini and Pisces both being mutable signs. And of course, as we know, when we are dealing with the modalities of energy and we are synced up to the same modalities, we are creating squares. When we are synced up to the elements like earth, water, fire, we are actually creating a very harmonious trine. So yeah, just as many, squares in this chart I'm seeing, we also have trines. We also do have a sextile that's being created from Pluto And there's just a lot of very dynamic energy here. And, dare I say, it's actually quite positive. This is the first week in a while where, even some of the astrology podcasts that I listen to kind of prepare and do research for these readings and for my own knowledge have actually had some really positive sentiments. So finally, again, it's like a breath of fresh air. We are finally breaking away from a lot of that tough, fixed energy. We're seeing a little bit more happening for the mutable energies. Cardinal energy is showing up here as well. And yeah, again, a really beautiful week coming to us. Now, something to keep in mind as well is on Wednesday, we will be having a new moon in Sagittarius. So as you may know, every time that we see the sun ingress into a new zodiac sign, very shortly thereafter, we experience a new moon. And that really just sets us up for the season. So yeah, a new moon in Sagittarius amidst all of these harmonious trines, and sure, the tension with the squares, but there's a sense of familiarity in this territory, or there's a sense of like things are kind of balancing out. And again, as a Libra, I am here. I'm here for this release of the really tense fixed energy that's been going on for the last month. So we are down to the wire with just a few cards left. We have some really great ones still to cover, so excited to see what comes up for us today. We are going to go with right in the middle, Sagittarius. How perfect is that? We love to see it. So Sagittarius, it is a fire sign, but this is kind of how I connect with the energy of Sagittarius. It's very different to the Leo and Aries energy, right? That to me is very hot, very hot energy. But when I think of Sagittarius, I think more of like, and it kind of goes with the season. We're about to enter into the winter time, but really with this card and with this sign, I feel more of that, like when you're standing out in the freezing cold snow and you're so cold that you feel like you're on fire. If you know, you know. But to me, that is much more in tune with the Sagittarius energy. It's kind of distant. It's really very expansive. As you can see, the glyph for Sagittarius is an arrow. And what you won't see in this particular image, though, is that the Sagittarius arrow is technically lit on fire, right? So when that bow expands and that arrow shoots out, we're seeing a traveling of energy, a traveling of ideas, a traveling of concept, knowledge, resource. Something is being shared across a great distance. And it would make sense that Sagittarius rules over long distance travel. It is associated with the planet Jupiter. So the whole idea of like expanding your mind and expanding your horizons is totally within this realm. Sagittarius is a mutable sign. Its opposite or sister sign is Gemini. And, it's kind of interesting because I think where Gemini really gets kind of caught up in the details, not so much like Virgo, but it really wants to kind of like talk things out and like really kind of uncover everything. Sagittarius is kind of more like, let's see the big picture, right? Like, let's kind of scale back a little bit and really take in what we're totally looking at, and not just focusing on like key little details and little pieces of information here and there. So yeah, here we have Sagittarius. I love the fact that this card come up. I really can't get over it because, again, we are seeing an exact conjunction between Venus and Mercury at 6 degrees in the sign of Sagittarius. And then in just a few, really hours, in fact, we are going to see the sun leave Scorpio's domain and enter into Sagittarius, where here in a few days, we're going to also start seeing some conjunctions between the sun and Mercury and Venus lining up in Sag. Now, between the new moon in Sagittarius and Venus and Mercury moving into Sagittarius, this just feels like the perfect time to bust out a book or to write a letter to someone, possibly, start exploring some kind of, eccentric and niche interests that require a lot of like learning involved. Sagittarius is a sign that we do associate with learning. And yes, that can mean like higher learning, like college institutions and things of that nature. But I also like to kind of say, you know, that this is also consciousness raising learning, right? So this doesn't necessarily have to be drugs or things of that nature, but this is really just like kind of putting your consciousness into a new frame of perception. And when you do that, kind of seeing what can come to you and what you can learn and where you can go with this new vantage point, this new perspective, if you will. Sagittarius is definitely a sign that has a lot to do with perspective and certainly can be opinions, but this is more just about like kind of broadening your view. And, you know, I do think that for Sagittarians that are around people that don't have a very wide view or who aren't into expanding their horizons, it can be a really tough position for them to be in, because really Sagittarius energy is desperate to explore, desperate to experience. And, you know, it just wants to get out there into the world. It doesn't want to be stuck at home. You know, Sagittarius is not the kind of sign that I would, you know, for a sun or a rising with Sag, this isn't the kind of thing where you're, you know, like Cancerian at home, nurturing and taking home. No, this would be like like a flight attendant, right? Who's out there in the world, who's seeing new things and taking new vantages. And yeah, I am a Sagittarius first house and also North Node. So for me, when I think about Sagittarius, I very much kind of tune into the education factor, the expansion factor, and also I grew up moving a lot as a kid, and not just moving like city to city, but cities to different states, to different countries, in fact. So yeah, that very expansive worldview of Sagittarius is absolutely something that I resonate with. I do also have a blog post on what it means to have a Sagittarius North Node, which I will link in the show notes below if you're interested. But yeah, Sagittarius, it is white hot, it is eager, it is learning, it is expanding, you know, and it's just here to live, you know, like I think what really inspires me about Sagittarius is their perseverance. They never stop, they just keep going. Really, when a lot of other, you know, people and placements would feel kind of downtrodden by the overwhelming experience of life, Sagittarius is like doe-eyed and like, let's go. What else is out there for me? Really, very Sagittarius perspective there. So let me bust out my little booklet here. You know, I gotta lead with the quotes. I always love the quotes. And this is a quote from Emily Dickinson, who was a Sagittarius. Luck is not chance, it's toil. Fortune's expensive smile is earned. You know, and that's interesting. Sagittarius, being that it's connected to Jupiter, luck and fortune do have kind of space within that realm. But I do also think that like those terms and the way that they're looked at in astrology are very kind of ancient. Where maybe don't necessarily translate totally in the modern world. So we'll see what we get. All right, Sagittarius. You're just about ready to hit your mark. The sign of Sagittarius is ruled by the planet Jupiter and is a mutable fire sign. The ancient symbol for Sagittarius is a half-man, half-horse known as the centaur, a creature trained in the art of archery who always manages to hit his target no matter how far he roams. Sagittarians are honest, candid, and not afraid to speak the truth. Since this freedom-loving fire sign is not offended by the truth, he is often surprised when others take offense to his words. Does anybody out there know a sharp-tongued Sagittarius? Sagittarians are drawn to religious ideas even though sometimes they deny it. They will go through periods of not being religious at all and then claiming to not believe in anything, even bucking up against authority. Religion and philosophy are concepts they remain fascinated by, though, and will argue for hours about religion, and usually at some point in life will return to some type of faith. But such a faith always remains an intellectual pursuit. You know, and I think that's a really cool distinction with Sagittarius, is like, because it's associated with like religion and philosophy and things of that nature, it's not necessarily spiritual, like, you know, intuition. This is more like what I've learned and what makes sense and what I've experienced and what I've seen others experience, kind of informing that opinion. Sagittarians are highly idealistic, creative, outdoorsy, and have a great sense of play and fun. They're also extremely restless and would prefer not to stay in the same spot, much like their sister sign, Gemini. Sagittarians dislike routine and are encumbered by the usual 9-to-5 job. They can end up as magicians, fire eaters, tattoo artists, entertainers, publishers, literary agents, tutors, bookstore owners. Anything that does not require a set schedule is perfect for Sagittarius. Sagittarians tend to be rather lucky, but have a habit of not handling money well and can sometimes squander wealth that comes to them. They're confident, which makes them very attractive to others and also very popular, drawing to them the things that they need. Sagittarians have integrity and will not go along with anything that is unfair or underhand. Wicca, paganism, and the Catholic Church are ruled by Sagittarius, and when you think about it, these religions with their pomp and ceremony, candles, and incense have a lot in common. Though not as showy as their fellow fire sign Leo, Sagittarians tend to ligurse by their nature and prefer what they do to be memorable. The Archer sign does not want an ordinary life. Again, this is not, the stay-at-home, taking care of the family, very conventional. No, this is breaking free from convention for sure. When Sagittarius turns up in a reading, freedom is essential. You will feel the need to fight against restrictions. You want to know where you stand. Interestingly, Sagittarius is the sign that represents large animals, especially horses and big dogs. If you are interested in acquiring a new pet, or that you have an animal that's a part of your life, this could be resonating with them. Like all beautiful beasts, you as a Sagittarian love the sense of wildness and being in the open air. This could be a great time to plan some travel, especially to vast countrysides, mountainous regions, or even Great Lakes. You may embrace a new philosophy, enroll in classes of higher learning, or begin to study churches and religions. A visit to a casino or areas where gamblings take place could also happen. If so, it's likely that you'll be fortunate and win in your ventures as long as you're not reckless. It's a good time to take a gamble. And man, Sagittarius, they are very willing to take a gamble. Your future is promising because you're ready to expand and grow beyond your limits. If you encounter difficulties, you'll surmount them easily and move forward to your next lucky break in life. Again, when I think about that transition that we're experiencing from this kind of underground, digging deep, fixed Scorpio energy into expansive, easygoing, eager to learn Sagittarius, I feel the vibe. I am definitely, I'm seeing others around me also kind of ready to take some classes, right? To learn something new, to go to a place they've never been before, to experience something that they've not experienced before. It's like all of this kind of emotional hibernating that's been happening. We're ready to kind of transmute that energy, which is such a mutable sign thing to want to do. So for this week, maybe try to learn something new, maybe make a plan to visit somewhere different. Open spaces are a very healthy part of what this sign is kind of guiding us towards. So if you need to go somewhere and just be in the space of it all, again, totally resonating with this energy. So Sagittarius, that is all for this week. I will see you guys next week. Until then, be kind to everyone around you and most importantly, yourself. Bye.